I thought, well, since you're so used to me talking all the time, I'll just continue on this morning a little bit and explore this lesson I prepared called proc tree, because I didn't want to spell it the word process. Now, everybody should have a copy of the source code, or if they don't, speak now, kind of, or hold your peace. Everybody has a copy? Yes. Good,
Where'd
okay.
the drive go?
Where'd the drive go?
You got it back?
I would. There you go. It's high quality Aeon drives.
Expected it to grow wings midair.
They also fly. But you didn't know that. So what I wanted to do with this example is explain quite a few basic ideas in AmigaOS and show off a little GUI. And the idea is that you would take this kind of code, maybe, if you like my code, and morph it into something that you want to write, like something that would be interesting to you. So I've just given you a little taste of what it's like. I didn't even include a button on this one. I tried to trim it down as small, as compact as I could get it. So maybe the first thing you want to do is add a button that says OK or whatever. Right? That would be a good thing to try. Here's a list from the Wiki of topics that are explored in that little example. I hope I didn't miss anything, but you can see there's quite a few little things that are touched upon in the example. These are all the stuff that is touched on in the example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the source code and kind of go line by line in a way, or piece by piece, and show off the bits that I think are the points that I want to get across. Like this line is important because of this. And I included lots of comments in the code trying to explain why that code exists. So has everybody looked at the code yet? No? First time? So I did create it kind of last minute, so I don't blame you if you haven't got to it. I'm going to sit down for a bit and then get the code up. What do I use? Code Bench. It's got the nice color on it. Could have sworn I had it on here somewhere. Yes. Good. Did you know? No, I did not. Okay. First thing I just want to point out is I have multiple files. Multiple header files here and multiple C source files. Of course, any project of any size, you'll have multiple files, or you're going to get one big file very fast. See, the linker, just to review, the linker will link all these ones together into an executable. So you could split it up into hundreds and hundreds of .c files. You could just go nuts, right? The header files are the glue that glues all the C files together. Like if I have a function in proc tree that calls a function in support, I include support.h. That's how they link together. So that's just kind of a beginner note. I don't want to delve too much about the basics of C, but that's right. The basic idea is use the header files to get the communication going between the C files. Basically the gist of it. So without further ado, how do you make this big? Okay. We start at main. So main is where everything starts, right? In your programs. Now, I put a little blurb up at the top. First thing I do in every program is start including things, right? I got all sorts of wonderful includes. This stuff at the top is all Amiga specific. Only Amiga uses these header files. And generally speaking, I don't think you really know what header file you need until you get an error from the compiler. I don't know. There's no list somewhere that says if I'm using this, I should include this header. There's no authoritative list anywhere. Yeah, yeah. Over the years, I've just learned what headers I need, just for memorization. It's difficult to know. This is where find on Workbench is very helpful. And also a tool like Codebench, where if you get an error, you can double click and it will help you to find the header as well. It kind of helps you along. In the old days, grep. You know, remember grep from Unix? Yeah? There's search on AmigaOS, which will do similar things. It'll search for symbols. So if you get an error message, first thing you should do is try to figure out what it wants and then search for it in your include files and see if you can find it. When you find it, include that file. So it's kind of a trial and error thing, I guess. You learn it as you go. And I'm sorry I don't have a definitive just do this all the time answer, but that's for these files here. These files, proto, I believe prototypes stands for prototype, does it not? Anyway, proto, that's what it's called. These files correspond to the interfaces. So if I call an IDOS function, I need DOS. If I call an iexec, I need exec.h. And so on, right? You should only include proto files for interfaces you use. Those are pretty easy because the names match. You know, I think they match 1-to-1. So say I have a function in, I don't know, iApplication. I'll go proto/application.h, and then I can call those functions. They're there, right? So you have one for every interface. This little guy here, that's a ISO-C file. That gives me access to the standard bool type. That was added in C99. So by default, you don't get it. You don't get to use bool. I like to use bool in my code. So I don't have this. I don't like using the Amiga bool because it's kind of old-fashioned and not a real type. So I like to use the standard. And then there's these guys. These are the links to the other modules I'm using. So I've got this proc info, proc label, and support that I need to use from main at some point down the way. So that's kind of an overview of the includes. Any questions on the includes before I move on? Because it's important, because you'll get compiler errors like mad if you don't have these right. So.
Those last three are red on my editor.
These last three are red on your editor? Yeah. Maybe because they don't exist in the project?
Oh, it didn't yet.
Maybe? I'm guessing.
That's what I'm guessing. As
Yeah.
well. Okay.
That's my guess. Yes?
The top ones are more for like structures.
Top ones are for symbols I use, structures.
The other ones are more like the function calls that are.
Yeah, that's right. This would be your constants, your structures, your types are in here. These are functions only. Yeah, that's right.
Just as a quick tip, people might want to use GUI's SDK browser, which in addition to opening up all the auto docs, also lets you search through all the includes and writing other things.
Oh, right.
If you're looking for a particular function, you just search in there, and he'll open up the appropriate include. So there you go. So you know which header file to include.
That's Jamie Kruger's, what's it called, SDK browser?
SDK browser.
Yeah, that has a nice search function in it to search for include files, given a symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're missing some symbol, you just put it in there, search, spits it out. Then you know what include to stick in there. Yeah, that's true. Forgot about that. I don't know if Codebench has that capability. Probably does, because it's got a large dictionary. I'm not very familiar with Codebench, so please forgive me.
What are you using?
I personally, I usually use a shell and an editor, and that's it, and grep. So the next section, I have these static const pointers. Static meaning it's going to stick around in this file only. Const string pointer. These are very special. and I have a little explanation of what each one is. See the embedded version string, you know that one, right? That's when you type version something, that's what gets printed out. Proc tree 11 blah blah blah. So in Amiga land, you want to version everything because the users expect it, and it makes support a lot easier, I'll tell you that, because then you know what version. But just don't forget to bump it every time you make a new version. You know, change it to version 1.2, 1.3, 4, 5, whatever you like. This is a standard format, and you have to follow the standard format for all the tools to be able to find your version string. So don't deviate from the format because you think it's cool. It won't find it then, potentially. So that's helpful. That's one feature of Amiga only. In Windows you have a similar facility, in Unix you have nothing as far as I know.
Is that date format December 10th or is it October 12th?
Oh, this goes day, month, year. Yeah, always in that order, always with periods. Yeah. And then the software knows what order to spit it out. See, what it'll do on the command line is it'll use your current locale and flip things around and show it the way you like, right? Whatever country you're in. So,
right.
Yeah. So every country likes their own thing. Next one down is a fairly new addition to Amiga. It's a stack cookie. Because in Amiga, there's no automatic stack extension. Boo, I know. So you have to guess / measure / you know, how much stack your application is going to need for its entire runtime. Ahead of time, before running it. So you take your crystal ball. No, generally you can see how much stack an application uses with various tools. There's a stack monitor tool that you can watch your stack go up and down. There's Ranger that will show you how much stack you used for your runtime. It'll just tell you. If you look at your process, it'll say, I used this much stack. It takes a good guess. The unfortunate thing is, unless you're one heck of a tester, you're not going to test every single trace through your program to find out how much stack you really needed. Right? So we've got general rules of thumb in the Amiga land. You kind of go, the minimum stack anything can have is like 16K, I believe. 8K, something like that. That's bare minimum. The system will bump it up if you try to go lower. It's just trying to protect itself. There's no maximum, although you of course ran out of RAM real fast if you set it to 2 gigabytes, right? Just don't do that. For GUIs, the recommended size, anything with a GUI is 80K. And you're like, okay, why 80, right? Yeah. Well, I measured it. I took a complex GUI, a very complex one, and ran a monitor tool on it and monitored things with the OS, checked the logs. 80 was a safe value. It used around 60, so I got 20K headroom kind of thing. And I've never had a problem since. And that was a very complex GUI. So it's not likely you're going to need much more than that unless you're like a Lisp fan and you love recursion. Then you're going to run a stack real fast. So the stack cookie is a nice way of forcing users, because users can mess with stack, right? You know that? There's a stack in the icon, there's a stack on the command line, there's a stack in workbench press. Because of the Amiga's limitation with stack extension, there's been various attempts to try and minimize the damage. This one will make sure that whatever they set, it's going to use that as a minimum. They can set it higher, but never lower than that number. Never lower. And the OS enforces that. So it helps with support, because there's always somebody who goes, I don't know, it just keeps crashing. Right, Paul?
I still want to know what happened to the stack extension.
Oh yeah, the feature itself? Yeah, that's still on the list. Okay. It is. I know, it's one of the higher features too. There's lots of features, but yeah, there's been experiments. In the 3.x days, they had an interesting stack extension technique. The compiler would add extra checks all over the code. Just find out, got enough stack? Are we running a stack? You know, it's always checking over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Right? You can do it that way, but it's not the smartest way. Yeah. Usually, what you do is you page fault and then go, oh, okay, I need more stack. Add it on. You're done. Right?
So you can extend the stack.
Yeah. Yeah. You let the MMU help you. So you're going to run out of stack. You just put a barrier at either end, and you can watch it. It's possible. Next line down is another special little variable, and it has to be named __stdio win. Has to be. And what I have a little explanation there what this is. This is a way to control that little window that pops up when you're running stuff from Workbench. You know, you're running stuff from Workbench, a little window pops up when there's output. You can control what that window looks like. You can put a title on it, the size, various other things. Or you could do what I did here and just send it to nil, which means don't open a window, don't bother me. So if I run this from Workbench and I have IDOS printf, nothing will come out. Or sorry, printf, nothing will come out because I said go to nil. So go to nil.
You can set a console definition in there?
Yes, or you can put a console definition. You can put con blah blah blah. There's documentation on that on the system. I just didn't want to get into it. This is just a way to control that window, and I wanted to just point it out that you do have control.
How many of the commands are going to have double underscores like that?
Oh, a double underscore is very special. That's a symbol, a way to not clash with the standard C symbols. Anything with the underscores in front generally is very, very special. And you got to know what you're doing if you're playing with it. So I just wanted to point it out that it is controllable, but generally you might not want to touch it, right? Yeah. It's a hint. It only applies at link time, that when that symbol gets involved. So.
So if you run this from the shell, will it still help us do it? Or does it
Oh, when you run from the shell, it has a standard window already.
Oh, okay.
This is just for applications that don't have a window, which would be a Workbench launched, right? Because when you launch from Workbench, there's no console. Yeah, yeah. That's that Amiga's peculiarity, where you launch from Workbench, you got one mode. You launch from shell, you got another mode. That's the way it makes it interesting. So, give you that. Oh, any questions before I move on? I just wanted to point those guys out. Oop, turn that off. All right. Just some features to think about in your own programs. Next section. I have a global variable. I know, sin. So because there's two modes to start up, I tend to make a global variable to distinguish which mode I started up in. Did I start up from Workbench or shell, right? Just because some of my tools I like to behave differently from either one. So I make a global variable so all my functions in the whole program can tell what happened, how I was started up. Just a convenience for me. The next part, I was trying to show, I'm going to open an intuition interface here. You notice I don't have to open these guys. These guys are automatically open for me on every program. So I always have iexec, idos, and iutility already open, ready to go on my program when main gets called. It's part of the startup. So you don't ever have to worry about it. I only have to open interfaces for extra libraries I want. Extra stuff. In this case, I'm using Intuition. That's just a pure library I need. Then we move down into the classes. Boopsie. There's lots of interesting documentation on Boopsie on the wiki, but generally, what I want to point out here is that if you're using GUIs, It's a different type here. It's called a class library. Window class uses a class library. Layout uses class library. They're not straight libraries. They're not library pointers. They're special. They got extensions to them. And then I also need an interface to one of the classes. So I actually have an interface to list browser that I'm going to get from this layout base later on. So Boopsy can get a little tricky because there's not just one method to make GUI objects do something. There's two methods. You can use this set attributes, get attributes, do method, or you can do this function call stuff, which is kind of strange. So I'm not sure I like this design, but it is what it is. So usually in other OSs, they just have one way to do a function call on an object, and that's it. You don't have two ways. Amiga, we like to make it interesting. So we've got function calls on objects, and we have just plain ordinary methods, they're called. I don't know if I have to explain methods right now, but oh, what happened there? Okay. So I have some explanation in the code, as you can see. Any questions on these pointers before I get going into the meat of it? You can see they're all global. That's important. They should generally be global. Yep.
Is there any, other than going through the documentation, are there any rules as to which classes are going to get to work with the interfaces, or whether you use the method mechanism?
Documentation, the only docs we really have are the auto docs.
Are there any rules as to which one to manage?
Which rules on which one to prefer, or?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have any choice, actually. So,
okay. So
if there's either a method there or a function there. Yeah, yep. And on list browser, you have both. You have function calls and methods.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know why it was designed this way, but
Probably different people working on different parts of it.
probably just different people going. Yeah. It's a strange class. That's why I wanted to make sure to use that one. See, that one's weird. Button, like if you have a button gadget,
Yeah.
it's obviously just methods. There's no functions or silly, funny things going on, right? But I use list browser just because it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah. And pretty much every software program, you're going to have a list of something, so it's good to have a list.
Okay.
Yeah, buttons are easy by comparison. Then, moving on to global data, speaking of global data, I put all my GUI data in a little structure that I pass around between functions. In a lot of examples, you see this kind of stuff being global variables. So I just wanted to point out, well, I decided to make a little structure. And I'm passing around my list of labels, my process list, a pointer to that. Until you see the rest of the code, you're like, well, why'd you pick that, right? See later, but this also gives me an opportunity to show private data being used and features like that. So yeah, I just wanted to point out that's what I like to use. And I'm going to use this structure and store these pointers to this stuff in the GUI objects themselves. I could take, each GUI object has this user data field, and you can put anything you like in it. Well, that's what I put in it, right? So every GUI object has a user data field. Very useful for linking from the object back to your program entities. Maybe I should take a minute and just show you what I'm doing here before I get too deep into it. I'll have to take this off. It's not. Here we go. Okay, so my GUI data there, given that little blurb, might make a little bit more sense. Because I have a list of list browser labels here, and a list of process info nodes, as I call them. There's my GUI stuff, the labels, and there's my data, application data, the process list. They're two different things. Now, that's why there's two, not just one list, right? That'll trip up a lot of people. The same goes for all the other GUI classes. You'll have a representation they like a chooser, that drop-down list. Those labels have nothing to do with whatever your application's doing. You're just getting a list of labels and it's saying index 2 was hit. It has nothing to do with your data. They're two independent things. So I know.
The programmer has to tie the two together.
Yeah, the programmer has to tie the two together, and then each GUI toolkit will have different ways of doing that. Like if you're used to Qt, they have this slot signal model they use to tell for the GUI to tell the app what's going on in a gist of it. And in Java, you got these notifiers and listeners. Each guy does their own little thing. In the end, they're all trying to solve the same problem, though. That wall. So it's not as bad as it seems. It's like trying to get at, right? It's just they're trying. OS 4 does it using events. We have an event model. So if something happens on the GUI, a little event appears. Very, very primitive, but very, very fast. So what I generally do in my big applications, I take the Amiga event model and I create a Java swing-like listener model, which I like in GUIs, or I've also used the Qt slot signal model, depending on my mood. So I've experimented with a little bit of everything, right? Yeah, just to get the data notifications going between all the entities. Yeah, yeah, it can get pretty complicated. So. This is why people appreciate things like Visual Basic. We draw the button, hit the code, it says on button click, do this, right? Yeah, that's another way to do it. You're still going through that wall though, right? Because the GUI clicked something, Visual Basic's hiding it, yeah. And then it calls your on button click, do this. You're still passing over that wall, right? So this is all solving the same problem over and over different ways. Computer science hasn't advanced much. So I laugh when I hear about advancements.
Some new Amiga programmer to write a Visual Basic for OS 4.
Yeah, Visual Basic for OS 4 kind of thing. These are just function prototypes. Just nothing to see there. Function prototypes. C language. Main. Whoo, main, finally, right? So in main, there you have the usual if-then statement like Paul was explaining yesterday. And there you have, if I'm started from Workbench, do this. If I'm started from shell, do that. And I invented this little notify user function to handle telling the user something happened. See, I encapsulated it into a notify user function just so that I don't have to get all complicated. If it's Workbench, do this. If it's shell, do that. I do it all in the notify user function. I hide it away, right? See, I'm not even going to look at it now. Don't care what it looks like. It just notifies the user, see? And it prints out that string, however it does it. It could be a guru, I don't know, right? Notifies the user. Next thing I do is open the interfaces I'm going to need. So right away, it's a GUI, going to need intuition. Got to open it. So I use another function for that. You might have seen it yesterday, if you remember. Open interface. And then I open version 53 in this case. And then if it's not null, meaning it opened, I handle the GUI and I close the interface and I'm done. There's my GUI. Any questions? Isn't that easy? That's it. That's your program. So now you start drilling down, right? This top-down kind of programming. I always try to do it nice and simple as possible, especially at the top, right? There's your main. Now if you see a badly written program, main will be several pages long.
You don't have a user the your function that you created, or is that AmigaOS?
Anything that has small word underscore small word is me. Yeah, it's just the one standard I picked today. Yeah, you kind of want to distinguish your functions from all the other ones, the libraries and stuff. I mean, some people put their initials in the front. Some use camel case, you know, start low, go high. What is it called? Hungarian notation. Everything's kind of flipped about. Yeah, you can invent whatever you like. Yeah. I don't think computer science has ever said this one's the best yet.
So when you pick 53, when you have notify user, you can put in there that you need 4.1 update, whatever.
I can put any string I want in my notify user function. I wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, I just take any string and just feed it to it, and it'll display it to the user somehow.
Yeah, like here, you're requiring intuition library 53.
Yes.
So that's what update that is.
53 is the latest version of AmigaOS.
So that
Yeah.
it's requiring.
Yeah, I'm requiring version 53. Yeah.
Update.
So you could trace that back to which update as well. You could say, well, maybe it's update 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. You have to look into the documentation to figure out which version that corresponds to.
But I was thinking that if you put in notify user that it requires 4.1 update 5, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that actually under the covers it does that.
Okay.
Yeah. See the open interface function?
Okay.
Open iFace I called it. That will actually call notify user if it can't open that library for me. It does it for me. See, now my code isn't cluttered with that stuff. That's why I like to encapsulate everything in function calls. So if open iFace fails, if it returns null, it'll tell the user why. It'll say, I can't find version 53. It's something, right? It doesn't say I need update blah, but it's something.
I was trying to look for a way to notify the user back at the beginning of the program and open up things that requires a certain version of
Yes.
libraries and stuff before you can use the program.
Well, each library is different though, so you're not quite sure. If you want a certain system level version, then you have to use version library. But you got to open it first and then check it. But version library controls the system level version. So if your program requires 4.1 update 3, you open version library, you check the version of that. That corresponds exactly to the release. And there's documentation on what version belongs with which update. Because a user sees update blah blah blah. Underneath, we programmers only see 53.4. Doesn't mean anything to the user, right? That's why we invented these release strings, because users can't talk that way, right? You don't want to give them.
So this program would only work on that release. How would you write?
How would you enforce that?
Differently for that release or later.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you generally.
Code would be different.
Yes, code would be different. Yeah. I didn't do that check in this code.
Okay. This
Yep.
only works on 53.
Yes, but I could have changed that to 52.
Right. Right.
I just used 53 because that's the current one.
Right.
That's all.
But you'd have to do a lot more coding to
Support older versions. Yeah.
No, or newer versions. So
Well, no, actually it's 53 or higher. It's implied.
Oh, it is implied.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's
It's not specific.
Okay. That's
Yeah, yeah. All these.
53, it won't work on anything earlier than 53, but it will work on anything later.
Right, right.
That's implied in
In the number.
versioning. Okay.
In the AmigaOS system.
Okay.
The whole system's designed that way. So if I ask for version 4, it'll still work.
Okay.
Even though we're at 53, because 4 was a long time ago. Like I could ask for version 0, and it would still work. because it's going to open whatever version of Intuition library is on my disk. And I know you're running Codebench, so I know you're running Viv 53.
Okay, no, I'm not running Codebench.
Oh, okay. Well, if you
something else, but
yeah.
I'm trying to understand, by putting 53 in here, you're allowing it to run on that version and anything that comes after it?
Yes,
Or
that version and anything after it.
but
So
nothing
version
before that?
correct,
Okay,
correct.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yep, nothing before. So for 52, it would say error.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's generally how version numbers work. It works the same with interface versions. They have versions too. That's why we have all these versioning issues. And now you can imagine a complex application with like 100 different libraries, why it has a little bit of trouble when you're mixing and matching stuff, because as a programmer you got to take care of all this detail, right? Yeah, I know it's no excuse, but
It's more work.
it's a lot of work. So the next function down, handle GUI, that's an interesting function, so I want to focus on it next. See, here, handle GUI, the first thing I want to do is open my classes I need. See, I haven't got them yet. So I need a window class, and I need a layout gadget, and I need a list browser gadget. And once I have all of them, I go in here and say handle GUI window. I drill down a little deeper, right? And then when I'm done, I clean it all up and I quit. So you can see the top-down hierarchy happening here.
You have error handling in the open class?
Yes, I do. Error handling's an open class as well, so I don't have to clutter my code. Because a lot of people won't do that, and they'll have if blah 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 blah, if blah 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 blah. Copy paste, copy paste. I don't like that style, so I just do it in a couple of lines, and then I check if they're null in one line, and I'm done. So away I go. Should I get into the Boopsy layout now? Probably should. Just take a... Does anybody know about window class and what that represents? It's a reaction GUI, all that stuff? No? Ring a bell? Yes?
Is it a reaction object or is it intuition?
Okay, I'll explain it then. Good. Now I know the answer. For proc tree, you might have buttons, right? Button, blah, 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 and they'd be nested. There'd be more layouts. Go right off into the wall. Don't see that because we're hiding it from intuition.
Can you query something to get a list of all the objects that it's created?
Can you query? Yeah, there is a GM query method now. Yeah, so it's being added. MUI does the same trick. Same trick. So both of these GUI toolkits are tricking intuition in a way. In a way, right? All it sees is like one gadget, one window. It doesn't know what's going on. And you can port third-party toolkits in the same manner. You can do the same trick. With Rebel, I ported the Rebel host kit to Amiga, which I haven't released yet, but I use the same trick, right? Intuition only sees a window, and that's it. Doesn't know what's going on. Meanwhile, I'm doing all sorts of magic, right? I'm drawing this, moving, rendering that, doing the Rebel magic. But it doesn't know. It doesn't know. It's all in the interests of compatibility. It's all compatibility. So, yeah. I'm trying to document this on our wiki, but I ran out of time. But I'll work on it over the months ahead. Just try to be more coherent. Because that part really tripped me up for the longest time, especially after I wrote Ranger. I went, what? Where's the other gadgets? And it finally dawned on me, oh, right. I figured it out. As a user, you wouldn't know unless you had access to source code, right? All the more important to remember that wall, right? Between data and GUI. So there's lots of magic going on under there. Okay, I just wanted to explain a little bit of that. So reaction's what we're doing today, window class up there. very first thing you'll see is a layout gadget. So I'll show you that next. I'll move over here. Oh, my mic's even on. Good. Just thought I'd check.
You need to turn it off so we have about 20 minutes of no audio.
Turn it off?
You turn it off. So 20 minutes.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We'll just drop this one.
Just drop in some elevator music. Handle GUI window. So in handle GUI window, what I'm going to do here, allocate a private structure to store all my data, like I said before. So you can see here I do a lock-vec tags. Now lock-vec tags is the preferred way to allocate all memory in AmigaOS. And this is explained on the wiki in quite a lot of detail. The old days used to have a lock mem, a lock vec, a lock something list, mem list, a lock. It was fun. Allocate, that was another one. There's all sorts of wonderful ways to allocate memory. So it's all been consolidated into one function. And I purposely put type private here just to point out I'm using private memory because it's my application only. I'm not sharing this memory with Intuition. This is my memory. And I use clear with value 0 because I'm clearing the memory automatically. Just a nice little convenience feature. Then of course, if it fails to allocate, notify the user. See, as from the comment, I create my process tree and the corresponding list browser labels. You remember again the good old wall? Process list. This is the list that I keep in my application. And this is the list of labels I show to the user. See, they're independent, they're separate. See, I'm doing that on purpose, right? I'm not trying to mix it. Mixing, like, I can't stress it enough. Mixing these things is a bad idea. We all do it. You're going to think it's a good idea one day and you're going to try it. I know you will. You say, oh, I can do it. No, you can't. You'll try though. I don't blame you. Someday you'll go, oh yeah, Steve said not to. We've all done it. Then what I do after I have my labels ready, I go and open the window. Then I handle the window events, close it up, free everything, and exit. Done. So you can see, before I even open the GUI, I'm creating the list that I need to display in the GUI. It's not even there yet. Then we drill down again into open GUI window and handle events. Right, so I'm drilling down deeper. This is getting a little scarier now. Tags. Oh, I love tags. Don't forget your tag ends, right? Lots of tags. So if you're scared about all the function calls, you'll be terrified about the number of tags. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of tags. There must be thousands of tags in the system. And this is just basically parameters, different options, everything you can imagine. It's mind-boggling sometimes.
They're always used in a certain pattern. You always have the name of the tag and the value.
Yep.
Name and the value.
Tag value. So you have an identifier saying what it is, what the value is. What it is, what the value is. Left, right, left, right. Yep. Question? Oh, you
I was going to
first.
say, that particular function call, intuition to new object, if you shift double click on new object, you're going to get the auto dock for new object if it resolves, right?
Possibly.
Double click, shift double click.
Whoop, shift.
Yeah.
I'm doing it wrong.
Shift and then, isn't that right? Shift double click?
Shift, double click, yeah, if you're on that. Hold the shift key down and double click on it.
There you go.
Ah,
So
oh,
this is the auto dock
yes,
for that function.
correct.
And the problem is, or I shouldn't say problem, the challenge is,
Challenge.
there's not a lot of data here. So all the
Well, of course
text
not.
you saw,
Yeah.
it's not here. So how
No.
do I find, to go back to the C program, how do I know what the tags are specifically for what I'm trying to do? Because it's not the new objects call, it's the,
Yeah. Because new object's a generic function.
Is it worth walking through that for a while and talking about it?
New object here, well, that applies to all objects. All objects. I'm kind of assuming here that you know what object-oriented programming is. No? Yes? No? Yeah, this could get deep. Anyway. Basic gist of it is you have a class, and if you want to take a class and you want to use it, you have to make an object based on that class. The class is like a template. It says it's got these features, and then you go new object, it creates the entity. It's like, say I have, for example, dog, right? Dog has 4 feet, head, tail. That's a class. It's not a dog yet until I have a puppy, right? A German Shepherd. That's an object. German Shepherd object, dog class. That's the basic gist of it. Right? A dog doesn't exist until it becomes a breed. It's got to be an animal, right? It's just a thought. Dog's just a thought, right?
So just for the layman, how does that differ from the structure?
Well, that's the same thing that's happening here. Window class doesn't exist until I make an object out of it. Then I get a real object right here. Then I can start programming with it. Underneath the covers, like what is it? Well, underneath the covers is just a collection of data. Yeah, it's just a structure. Yeah, yeah. But we're trying to hide what's in that structure from you as a programmer. All you get is this generic object star. You don't know what's in it, and that's on purpose. We don't want you to know what's in it so that we could change our minds and not break your program. It's all a way to encapsulate and hide, data hiding. Yes, question in the back?
Yeah, this new object function here. I mean, are there separate constructors for each classes, and do those constructors have default values to the tags that, I mean, each
Yes.
class is going to have a structure associated with tags and members of that structure? Are there default values for it?
Yes,
And other
yes.
than looking in the header, is there any way to know?
There's default attributes for every single class.
You only
Yeah.
have to, so you only have to, when you're constructing an object here.
Like
you
here,
have to-
these are the differences.
Huh?
These are non-defaults. Yeah, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. These are non-defaults. And you're like, well, how do I know what these are? And how do I know what they do? Documentation.
Look at the header.
Can you
Yeah.
shift double click on window class?
On this one, I don't know what that would do. Didn't think so. No, you can't resolve that because it's not direct.
So I think the
Yeah. Maybe this will. Oh no, it
the
didn't.
first order of search is to double click within something like Codebench. But as you pointed out, that because there's so much flexibility, Codebench doesn't necessarily know what window class it belongs to.
No, that's a pointer
Just can't figure
to
it
a
out.
window class, so it's indirect. It's
So there
indirect.
are a number of SDK browsers, and I think actually if you go to the toolbar and hold the mouse at the very bottom of the screen, the very, very bottom, the little pop-up toolbar.
This one
No,
or
all the
this
way down.
one?
Just hold it at the bottom. It's like Windows 95.
Oh, that one.
Click
Oh.
on the magnifying glass, I think.
Mhm.
Is that it? So here is the an AutoDoc viewer that's built into the the Codebench tool, and so you can actually find the window class documentation.
Window class. There you go.
So you can scroll through that, and then it should list out it gives background information, and then also lists out what the tags do.
Where are they? Well, sort of, but yeah, I know what you mean.
No, there's a bunch.
Doesn't say what they do.
Some of them. It
This refers to another document which tells you what these do. You don't want to make it easy. Then you go down here, these are the newer ones. These tell you what they do. Yep.
So just if you're programming a code bench and you run into a function you don't know how to use, you can go to that tool item at the bottom and choose the AutoDoc viewer and then browse to the list. If you look on OS4Deep or AmiNet, there's a number of other AutoDoc viewers that allow you to even search. So you can get even more data and say, okay, what does this tag do? And the SDK browser from Jamie does a very good job allowing you to search AutoDocs and header files. So you can find this exact parameter somewhere in the system and start trying to figure out what it is.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Yeah, it's quite a lot of tags, The nice thing is the defaults pretty much do what you need. They open a window. They don't have anything interesting in the window, but they open a window, right? So that's why it's so important to have examples, right? Because if you try to do this from docs, you're going to hurt yourself. You can't just rely on documentation. You got to see examples, and you like this one. Take this one, start adding tags, start removing tags, see what happens, right? Best way, find out what happens. And there's a lot of tags. There's a lot of tags. Some tags interact with other tags, you know. Some are incompatible with these ones. It's a barrage of options. Every GUI toolkit I've seen does this kind of thing. It's this barrage of options. If they're not a huge list of tags, they're a huge list of individual classes. Like you gotta handle complexity somehow.
And I think there's one other piece of information for someone who's new to programming would be valuable is that you can highlight the start brace in the example. So new object print, and you put the cursor one past it, right there, and now you can see where it ends. So what I'm saying is that
down here.
Yeah. Right. So that whole thing, that whole block of text, is what's being passed to the intuition new object.
Yep.
So it's just laid out visually for the programmer to keep track with
for me.
The tag and the value and the tag and the value.
Yeah.
With a lot of white space added in there so that it makes it easier to follow.
Yeah.
So you could not have that and just have this really long single line string with all of this data. So I think it's another important visual understanding of the way that is, and it's a good programming style because it helps you find problems.
Right.
If you miss commas or you have the value associated with it.
Yeah, you can read it. You can see there's a tag here called window layout. And it's got a comma, new object. And you're like, whoa, there's another one. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a layout gadget inside of a new object call of another one, right? And then I got some more tags. And I got add child, so I'm adding a gadget in there, and that's my list browser gadget. And it's tag in, tag in, tag in. So they're all nested. So your usual GUI builders, where you visually do this, you could take a window, visually use it, put a list browser in there visually, and hit generate, and it will do this kind of skeleton for you. Now that's what Jamie was working on, a way to do that. But I'm not sure what state that's in. It kind of got frozen again.
I think Emperor is
another option.
one of the more advanced ones.
I think there's this thing on MorphOS Chocolate Factory that does something similar. Many people have tried to make GUI builders, of course, because it gets tedious doing it the manual way. Like I always used to have a whiteboard at home, and I'd draw my GUI on the whiteboard, and then I'd create it in code. That's another option.
And you can keep track of the numbers also.
Yeah.
Sizes and the widths.
Yeah,
pixels
I draw it, and then I can see, okay, this layout has these buttons in it. This one does this. Usually a GUI, if it becomes too complicated for a whiteboard, you're probably not doing it right anyway. So it's my motto. If it doesn't fit on your whiteboard, you're not doing it right. GUI is going to confuse the user, right? So depends on your point of view. Yeah.
Is there a high definition whiteboard?
It's very high def. It's analog. Hard to beat analog. So this is a very, very simple GUI. It can get real ugly. And I'm hoping that you'll take some of this code and just make your own. That's my hope. So this is just a quick example. So after you're done creating all your objects, I do something a little different. See what I do just before I open the window? I use this user data pointer, remember I was talking about that? To store my GUI data in the window object. That's where I store it. And you're thinking, well, why would you bother, right? Well, then I don't have to pass around global variables. I don't have to pass around variables to functions all the time. Anytime I need access to my GUI data, I'm going to have a pointer to the window object because that's my root for my GUI. So.
The GUI data referring to the data of your application?
Yeah, that's my application data that I've allocated right up here. Do you remember?
And it has two members.
This stuff.
Right?
It's got 4, but yeah.
But you're allocating 2 earlier.
I allocated it up here, and then I store it as a convenience for myself into here. Now you can put anything you like in there, but that's what I'm putting in there. And I use the set attributes function to stick it in there because the window object is an opaque pointer. You don't know what it is, right? So you got to use set attributes. And then I open the window. Now here's where the wall comes up.
By putting the GUI data into the window structure, that's just a pointer to the data.
That's just a pointer, yeah.
So you can still access the data even though it's it's referenced by the windows.
Yeah, I can access it any other way I wish. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
But
it's a hole in the wall.
that's right.
So just to wrap up on that, I can do the window object dash arrow window underscore user data dash arrow and then list what you had before, right?
Nope.
Is that how you access it?
No, you can't get at it without using get attributes.
Okay, so it's a little different.
It's opaque.
Okay.
You do not know where it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of Boopsy, is to hide that stuff. Because in the old days, that's what programmers would do. They'd shortcut, grab a pointer, dive into the structure, dive into their data. Problem with that approach is now we can't move that field ever in all of time, right? It's stuck where it is. Yeah, in memory, it's stuck where it is forever. So instead of letting you do that, hide it, and we can move that data anywhere we want as an OS developer and not break your application. That's the name of the game, is not trying to break stuff. Not doing it because we like complexity. A little bit. So just moving on to the method, I-do method. So when you invoke a method on an object, that's basically saying call a function. Method, function are pretty much equivalent as far as our purposes here. You can get into semantics, but so I call this function called I-do method in Intuition on window object, and I say open. So I'm saying window object, open. You know, you got to put your arms up. Open. You shall open. Right? That's what you do. You're commanding the object to do something. Open. As soon as I come back from this function, Intuition has control of that GUI, and I'm now no longer allowed to touch it without going through the proper channels. It's like administrative hassle now. Up to this point in time, I could do anything I like with my object, but now I've given it to Intuition because I've opened it. So from this point on, I'm trying to say in the comment here, you can't just poke at it, you can't just read stuff from it, you can't do anything to it without going through proper protocol. So that's a very important concept, because I've seen many questions in the web forums. Why is my data random? You know? Well, because Intuition has it, not you, right? You're not using it right. This catches a lot of people.
So within Intuition IDo method, are there particular tags that are used more than others? Because I see WM open, which is window open. Is there like a subset that get used a lot, or I'm assuming it's got more members?
More methods?
More methods.
Yeah, it's got a few methods. There's not much that window does, actually. It's got iconify, uniconify, open, close. The very important one it has is handle event, which is the next one down here. That's the best method in there. But you got to remember now, Intuition has my window object, not me. I'm no longer in charge, right? And then of course I clean up afterwards, but not interesting for this. Then I go into handle GUI window events, because so sure my window's open. Now what happens if a user clicks a button or something, right? Nothing will happen actually. He'll just do nothing. If I don't handle events, nothing will happen. He'll just ignore me. Not very interesting. So we're getting down into the meat of it now. We're into signals. In order to talk to my window, I need to wait on a signal. So the window Intuition will signal me when there's an event, is what it's going to happen. So, because we're on separate processes, remember? Intuition's over here, and I'm over here. And all I do now is I call wait down here. Or I'll just point to it, this wait. All I'm going to do in my program is wait until I get one of these signals. That's what I'm saying here. Wait for a window signal, a break signal, or a notification signal. Just wait. That's all I'm going to do. And if nothing ever comes, I do nothing. My program will just sit there doing nothing. It won't eat any CPU. It'll just do nothing. And this, like I was mentioning yesterday, the signal is one of the most primitive ways for you to synchronize two processes. This is it. I added the break mask in there just for fun. So if the user presses Control-C or sends a Control-C to my process, it'll break out. It's like hitting close gadget or something. And as an extra bonus, I added notify process list change on here. Right? What if my program's running and the DOS process list changes? How do I know? Right? Well, that's how I know. I get a Control F sent to my process. Now, I just want to, do I have enough time? Let's see here. Ooh, it's getting late.
So the reason why you're using notify proc list change is because this is the proc list browser. You're
Yes, it's a process list browser.
Function from the DOS interface.
Yep.
Specifically because of this. So if
Yes.
I was writing a program that was notifying data coming in from the internet.
Yes.
On BSD
So if you had an
library,
internet,
BSD library notification.
so if you have an internet application, you're going to use using sockets. Sockets have signals. They will notify you when data comes in on Ethernet. Yeah, they'll say, "Hey, data,
And you said
come get it."
sig break B Control F. What is that specifically? Is that something you define?
Something you look at in the Autodoc.
Okay.
I don't want to get too deep into it here.
But that's coming from proc list change. It's related.
This is
to
a
that.
parameter I'm giving to it. So I'm saying, DOS, tell me when the process list changed, and when it does, send me a Control F. Because in Amiga land, you have 4 signals you get for free on every process. You get Control C, D, E, and F. Always. They're all allocated for you. You can use them any way you like. Now, I could make break Control D, but that would really confuse a lot of people. Because pretty much every platform on the planet uses Control C as a break. Yeah. But I could make them do anything I want. So I'm just using F because, well, it's convenient. It's already there.
So Control C is user or just another one of yours?
It's another, this one's given to you by DOS. DOS gives you Control C to do what you want with it.
But the use of that is a commonly Control C.
It's commonly meant as a break signal.
Control F and Control D have common uses?
They have common definitions too, which are defined in the Wiki. Hello.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, we got new toys coming in. Thanks.
Steve?
Yep.
Just to drive you off track completely.
Yep.
So I know DOS has signals and Tuition has signals, and typically these are defined as globals somewhere, presumably it's an header somewhere. How do we find out what they are, other than going through the headers themselves?
How do you find out what the signals are?
Well,
there's
the globals that we would use in order to access those things.
Well, it's pretty simple actually. In the wiki, it explains the default signals in exec somewhere. So exec itself has a set of signals it uses. There's 16 of them.
Yep.
They all have defined meanings or are reserved. There's 16 total. Then DOS adds 4 for itself, and then you got 16 user signals that you can use for anything you wish, and there's a protocol to use to allocate them and deallocate them. And that's it for signals.
Okay, so when I go look on the wiki for a particular signal, presumably it'll tell me what the actual name of the global is.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually in include exec tasks or something. I think it's in tasks.h. It's off the top of my head.
And here, all the signals are always going to be unsigned in 32?
Yes, yes. Because there's 32 signals total. There's 16 bits of reserved, 16 bits of user. Yeah. And it's very, very simple protocol. You know, ones or zeros. But you always have to wait for them. So you're never busy wait, right?
So the wait is a
exec
blocker.
function. It blocks your.
there.
It means I'm going to do nothing but wait for these signals. And this is how multitasking works, right? Because most of the time a task is waiting. So while it waits, something else gets to go. Yeah.
So if in every case we possibly can, we need to stop what we're doing for something else to happen or for some sort of input, always want to wait.
Yes.
Never want to use like the delay.
That's right. Never delay is pointless. Well, I mean, you could use delay, but
Well, I guess a more advanced way, instead of using a delay, is to set a timer.
yeah, or you have a
And then
timer,
wait
but
for the timer.
you're waiting for the timer, or you're waiting for input from the internet, you're waiting for the disk file to read in. You're always waiting for something. You're always waiting.
The iExec wait is the same function for all of that.
Yes.
Instead of saying win mask or break mask, it would be waiting for a timer call. Or something.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, you'd have a timer signal then. Or you'd be waiting on a signal from a message port, because message ports have signals. So it tells you, hey, there's a message waiting for you. Go get it. So you're waiting again. Yeah, yeah. And now I'm just using good old C to make one big mask out of a bunch of little masks. You can look that stuff up after if you don't understand what the bar means. It's or, binary, you know, that wonderful stuff. Yeah. It's because it's so primitive, you know, and it's so fast because it uses very, very low level stuff. Yes?
And then for anything like and, for like the break mask and sig mask, when you're already having sig mask or together on the top.
Oh, well, this one here, this sig mask, this is returning after a wait. So I don't know which one of these signals came back. That includes 1, 2, or 3 signals in that mask. I don't know which one. It could have been all simultaneously coming back. So I could have all 3. It's not this or this or this. It's kind of like all together.
My wife used to say you have a sig mask and break mask.
Well,
break
this
mask
here?
is an element of sig mask.
Yeah.
Sig mask I defined up there.
But no, break mask.
Or sorry,
the
break
if
mask I
statement
defined up there.
Is also part of sig mask. So if break mask hits,
Yeah.
See, break mask is a control C.
yeah.
So if you do an AND operation, it will be 1 if break mask is set, otherwise it's always 0.
But you're doing it in sig mask. So could you remove the one from sig mask?
Remove the one from sig mask. What do you mean? I don't understand.
So
Remove what?
break mask is control C.
Yeah.
The like you're going to receive a control C.
Yeah.
Sig mask is going to respond to that, and the if statement is going to respond. Why is it in both places? Is the question.
Well, you have to assign it. Because the return value from wait is what signal
No,
triggered the...
inside sig mask is an iExec wait, win mask, break mask, notify mask. but your if statement has sigmask and breakmask.
Yeah.
Both places. Why in both places?
Why in I don't understand. What do you mean both places?
Explain the binary math, that's basically what he's saying.
Binary?
Well,
Sorry, I don't get it. This is an assignment.
Basically building a combination mask there, Bill. And what he's doing is that he's calling the wait on the combination mask and saying, if one of those three signals occurs, then wait will wake up. But then you get the result of that, which is sigmask tells you, someone woke me up and it's in here. Then what you have to do is go down below it and say, if I take sigmask and add break to it, it's going to become true if break was the one that woke it up.
Why wouldn't you just use break? Break mask.
Because break mask is always true. Break mask is control.
Break mask is always
You've
1.
got to compare break mask against the message that came back and say,
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. You're saying the control C is always on?
well, no, break mask is the variable that was defined above, right? It's the
Yeah.
first line up there. So it's always going to be what it is.
Like-
If it's
Yeah.
true or false, it's meaning. It is control
Like
C.
I could do wait mask equals win mask or break mask or notify mask. That's fine too. I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
I mean, I get that, right? I'm just-
If that's better, I don't know.
He's going to say,
No, you're not understanding.
it's
Go
going to
back.
contain.
What's the difference?
Why is this?
If it's a global.
Why is
break
this?
mask- Break mask is a global,
Here.
so it's.
Well, it's because I'm testing against it.
So you
He has
need
to test it against
one of
sigmask.
these and that, is what you're saying.
One of these and that?
Take control C, somebody take control C.
Yeah, but how do
Sorry?
you-
Oh, this is for you.
And.
Yeah,
okay,
but that's not logical and. That's binary and. Yeah. Oh, that might be why you're confused. Okay. Okay. I think the confusion is you don't know what and is. The and operator. This isn't.
That's, yes.
This is a binary or. This is a binary and. It's not and. It's not logical and. Yes, logical and is 2 ampersands. Yes. That. Okay. Now I get it. Sorry. I'm in the wrong zone. See? Like what? No, this is good old binary from high school or wherever you learned binary. This is the and operator. You know, if the truth table would be, I could show you a truth table, actually. If it helps. The truth table is, it's only 1 if both operands are 1. That's an and operation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Only if they're both 1. So this is a very efficient way of testing if break mask is set in there. Very efficient. Very efficient. Signals are. That's why they're so low level. It's because this is called a lot. So they tried to make it as fast as possible. Same technique in Unix. Same technique in Unix. So yeah, you'll see a wait. Same call, basically. Wait on signals using that wonderful binary. Once you get past that, it gets more normal. Higher level, you're not in binary anymore. But you just got to get past it. Once you're past that, then you're in, see? Higher level semantics. Messages and events, right? You feel better. Still, we got another one of these, but so after you've waited for your signal, you got your signal, you will drop into here. What I'm doing here is I'm calling IDO method all the time, even if I don't get a signal. I think I wrote it that way, did I? Yeah, see, I don't even check if it's a signal. I just try and see if there's a message waiting. See, if you want to be efficient, you check if there's a signal. So I kind of forgot that part. I used to have it, but I ripped it out because it got ugly. Anyway, let's just go into the handle method. Every time you get signaled that there's a message waiting, you call this handle method, and it will return a bunch of stuff. It gets this code, it gets this result, and then you got to apply some logic to it and figure out what kind of event came back to you. And this pattern is repeated over and over in every example, so you get used to it after a while. You can see event class, I named it. Close window, gadget up. Is that the only ones I did? There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, I just did those two today, just to keep it simple. And you loop around until you run out of messages. You run out when that's returned. When it says last message, you're done. So. Because a signal could be one message, it could be many messages, or it could be 0 messages. That throws people off too. Even though you're signaled, you could have no message. Because of multitasking, you could get the signal just slightly ahead of when the message got there. So your code has to be aware of multitasking at all times, right? You have to handle the 0 case. You could get signaled for no reason. Well, seemingly no reason.
So what do you do? Just keep going back and checking for the signal?
You just loop. Yep.
Loop?
Yeah, you go back, check again.
Wait.
Well, you go back to the top, wait again, right?
Okay. You mean you still, if you go back to the wait will kick you back out again if the message
Well,
is not
no.
there yet?
See, it won't, because if you didn't get a message, even though you were signaled, you have to handle that case. So, what do? Right? What do you do? You busy wait, or do you just wait for the next one? Right? It's up to you. It's very rare, though. It's very rare. So generally, you just ignore it. Generally. But if you have a time-sensitive system, you got to handle that case, right? If you're doing a real-time loop, you got to handle that. You got a busy loop, you got a spin lock or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the flag for the message and the message contents are atomic.
No. The signal and the message contents aren't atomic. Yeah. They could come anytime. That's always the way it's been designed. Although I rarely ever see a signal without a message showing up. But it does happen, right? When it gets really loaded, it can happen. So, kind of different.
You guys could, now that you're on the power, you guys could make use of reservation ops.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
To allocate the storage, and when that's time for the message, then you signal the flag.
Yeah, I always thought
This is not fun.
to fix that so a signal always means a message, so you don't have to worry about it, but who knows what you might break. Right? See, I left a little note here, gadget up. Here you could actually find out what they clicked on. Left as an exercise for the student. Good luck. Then I have a little blurb here about notify. Remember I asked for notifications? This is where I could show again this wall, right? I always go back to that. I'm calling this set attributes function, and I'm saying, hey, set the labels to null. That means, that tells intuition, hey, I'm going to mess with the labels now. You're off duty. I mess with the labels, and then I call this refresh set gadget attributes to put labels back on again. Now the naive programmer would just change the labels and kind of assume it works, because it seems to work. But then the users will go, hey, wait a minute, that just disappeared, and bad things happen. But this is the procedure you use for changing a label list live. So every program's doing this already in the Amiga. So if you think it's slow, well, it's not really slow. It's a very interesting way to interface with it. Very interesting. Any questions on this stuff that I could answer? Yep.
Yeah, so why did you... Okay. You purposely put all that stuff into your GUI data structure. And now you're overriding the labels piece with null.
Yep.
Why?
Well, you mean this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that means it has a special meaning. Has a special meaning to list browser gadget. To list browser gadget, when you say labels null, that means stop what you're doing, leave the labels alone. So the user will see the list just frozen.
Okay.
That's what the user sees.
Okay, I see the point. So that way you keep it frozen until you specifically want to force an application.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a synchronization mechanism. It's kind of a strange way to do it, but hey, that's how they designed it. So they call it detaching. That's the term they use. So I'm just repeating. They call it detaching the labels. So you detach them, mess with them, attach them again. Now the user doesn't know what happened. It's all hidden, right? It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat, I think. And of course you clean up and such. And then you close the window and you're done. That's it. Easy. So if you have the code on your machine, you might want to run it right now just to see what it looks like. I think everybody should just give it a try. I'll try it here, actually. Good idea. Is this try it? No. How do you run it again?
Go to the bottom again.
Toolbar. Oh.
Did you see in it?
Just hold it at the very, very bottom and then go to
There could be errors, but you never know.
the first one.
First one? This one? Ah.
And then click that's build it. And then the play button is the run. Should have brought the other one first.
What's going on back here? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
But then the other button is to start it. So if you go back to the toolbar.
Yeah.
and
That
the
I know.
one bar, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. I got mine running.
Cool.
Did you see the fade in?
Yeah, so
Compositing's off.
So is the value in milliseconds?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's not micro. I thought it was micro and then nothing was happening. I was like, what the? Yeah, I had 3 zeros.
Okay.
Yeah, I got caught on that. I wanted to do a tiny little effect, so I just added that.
Nice. I like the little gadget up notification.
Yeah, yeah, and you can see it's a tree. So I have some recursive code in there, but I'm not going to get into it because we've kind of run out of time. I don't want to take all day. So I put a lot of interesting thought into that demo. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Are you going to make it one of the examples in the next SDK?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good one to have. I'll have to fix that weights problem, but
Maybe add a button or two in the menu item.
there could be bugs. I don't know. There's no menu on this either. A menu might be nice, right? Add a menu strip.
Can you go back to the source code?
I love that. It fades for everybody who's smart and leaves compositing on.
As soon as you support high res, I'm there.
Ah, where'd it go? Where'd that window go? Did I?
Go to the bar again.
Oh, there it comes. Oh, okay.
So go to the window open tags. So we have a drag bar, we have a close bar,
Yep.
close gadget, we have a size gadget activate. So what we don't have is the gadget that does front back in the upper corner.
Right. Not there. That's correct. Very good. The depth gadget.
The depth gadget. Probably should for a system application. Just to show that when you're writing your application, you can choose to leave these things off. If you have a window that popped up in the middle of the screen, you couldn't do anything with it.
See? True. There you go. Now it has a depth gadget. Right?
So if you wanted to add a codification, is it a gadget, or do you actually have to do work again in the handling of that event?
Oh, where is it? I must have spelt it wrong. Oh, I didn't hit compile. That helps. Where's compile? Hey. Where am
First
I?
read button, check mark.
Oh, right.
And then the blue one,
I got-
rebuild everything.
I gotta get used to these buttons one day.
Command S, Command D.
Oh.
And it gave you the size one, which wasn't very good.
The zoom, yeah.
So codification, just to talk about it, is it you add the gadget to a codify and it does everything for you? You also then need to...
No, iconify is tricky because you're closing the window. So your application has to do some work.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Amiga, unfortunately, the iconify action is a little bit destructive. Now there's also window hide though. So you can hide it and then unhide it when you hit the gadget instead of iconify, but then you got no icon. So it's like, well, I guess.
Well, I guess you could do hide, which is non-destructive.
Yeah.
And then use another.
Yeah, you could cheat.
with the icon.
Exactly.
How do you bring it back?
Well, there's an uniconify event you'll get. So when you get uniconify, you got to go open your window again. You got WM open.
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay, what's the difference between iconify and hide?
Well, iconify is very destructive. It will actually close your window, release the memory, and create an icon on Workbench.
Right.
And then when you uniconify, you have to recreate your window again.
Ah.
It's destructive. It killed that window. It's
But
gone.
does hide give you the,
Hide just makes it disappear from the GUI.
how does the user bring it back?
Well, they can't. It's hiding, right?
Okay.
So yeah, the program has to unhide it then.
Or I'd have some utilities where I can force the signal for it.
Yeah, or you could try to force it to, whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that goes back into features of the operating system. So the operating system has the dock bar, the application library, and then also the commodities library. So you have a number of different ways, and then they're actually a little bit competitive in some of those functions.
Yeah, they're a bit repetitive.
For managing that user interaction.
Yep. Oh, look, gadget up. See, I hit the, did you try hitting a button? Gadget up. That's all it's going to do, though.
It doesn't open?
No, it doesn't do anything.
Well, can you open the list browsers?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do whatever you like.
Does this do?
No, it's up to you. See, I had to stop somewhere. Otherwise, this is just going to go on and on and on. So, like I could do menus and, yeah. I wanted to give Lyle some time.
It is actually a pretty easy way of defining a list browser's hierarchy.
It's not too bad.
And just pass it to members.
Yeah, and you'll see the code that builds that label list in there.
Is that in proc
It's in proc label. There's code to build the label list in there. Yeah. It's so-so, and it's recursive too because you don't know how many children you're going to have on your process list. So I wanted to make it a little bit tricky. Show off maybe. I don't know.
You can just select your function to do that.
A little bit of Lisp. And plus the process list is kind of a new feature of 4.1 or 4.0 as well. Can you imagine the Amiga never used to have process IDs, never used to have inheritance between processes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very primitive. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's like PC DOS, man.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Things have moved. Yeah, it's hard to imagine being that primitive, but it was that. It was. Yeah. It made handling child processes a real pain because you had to do everything yourself. The OS wouldn't help you. Yep. I remember.
Oh, why did you do all your own process management?
Pain, I'll tell you.
It certainly would discourage you from spawning multiple processes to handle things.
So those third-party frameworks kind of started appearing too,
Everybody probably pretty enjoyed while loops.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into the other files because that's left for later. I tried to comment them as much as I could. But
I've got a question.
Question, sure.
In the source code.
Sorry?
In source code here, where we're, let's see, where was it?
Back online? Okay. I turned my mic back on. We were talking secrets. Okay, so lunch is coming right up. So we should probably break for lunch. But before we do, there's the, what's it called? MIDI, what did I call the archive? I gave everybody the archive on the MIDI stuff. Everybody should have a copy except one person. Okay. And if you should install all of that stuff on your machine if you find time during lunch or soon, just so that we don't waste too much time when we come back. What did I call it here?
MIDI lesson well,
MIDI lesson?
MIDI lesson, yeah.
Okay, MIDI lesson it's called. Where is
What
it?
came with it? I archived it in.
I've lost my copy. It's in the cloud somewhere.
So go back, stand over there for a second. Just go stand up and then we'll say tomorrow. Thank you, Steve.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did you say you expected everybody to have?